The primary mission of our colleges and universities is to help their students earn a degree. Their mission statements are filled with the lofty ideals of higher education, teaching, research, and public service. Our most prominent universities say they are dedicated to their students' intellectual growth and their development as leaders in their communities. So why are these same institutions running a multi-billion-dollar sports entertainment enterprise?
He's at the 50! No, he's not! Yes, he is! Theo! He's gonna take it for a touchdown!
The United States is the only country in the world that has universities that have commercial sports of anything close to this magnitude.
1 second, let's fly! Got it! The Blue Devils win it over North Carolina!
All you got to do is mix in a little bit of ESPN, and now the monster it's out of the bag.
McLendon takes it. He looks, guns it over the middle. Caught! Touchdown! Touchdown, Underwood!
I don't think anybody anticipated 20 years ago the huge infusion of cash.
To Hairston, a three. Watch out! Goodness gracious!
The people who are generating a revenue, flying all night, getting in at 3 in the morning, and playing again 24 hours later, they're student athletes.
Touchdown, A&M! Third of the half for Johnny Football.
They can make millions of dollars off of us.
Gives it to Rickwood. Three is up. And good! At the buzzer! At the buzzer!
The message that's getting sent is that your play on the sports team matters more than going to classes.
And he's not just going to get the first down, he's going to get a touchdown!
What we see in the headlines about big-time collegiate sports has nothing to do with leadership development or academics.
Our major universities are supposed to be about academics, but quite often they're better known for athletics. Their football and men's basketball programs are money-making machines that seem to overshadow everything else on campus. For the next hour, we will examine big-time college sports and whether it's gotten too big, from its rabid fans to its millionaire coaches to its star student athletes. TA McClendon was a star running back for NC State.
McClendon's got the first down and close to the touchdown. He's in.
As a freshman in 2002, he was ACC Rookie of the Year, rushing for over 1,000 yards and setting a single-season school record with 18 touchdowns.
There's no other place you can get that same adrenaline, and once it's gone, you know it's gone.
TA was born Tristan Akeem McLendon in Albemarle, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. He played football in the streets with other neighborhood kids.
You know, it's like, all right, cars coming, oh, you know, get out the road, here we come. You know, let's get back, third down. You know, we played in every possible situation, you know, in the neighborhood that you could think of, rocks, glass, you know, it didn't matter. My mom was around for a good majority, just me and her and my brother.
His dad was around, some.
He was, you know, I guess you could say a typical black dad. He was around as much as he could. We moved around a lot, you know, stayed with different people, and then I moved with my aunt, and that's when I started playing sports.
McLendon first played organized football in middle school.
We knew he was going to be really good.
And as a high school freshman, he was.
And I think this is either the first or second time he touched the football, he goes around the right side and runs for a touchdown.
McLendon became one of the most productive high school players of all time.
He made things happen.
Over 9,000 yards rushing in high school, scoring a national best 178 touchdowns and a state record 7 touchdowns to help Albemarle win the Class 1A state championship.
To be honest, I just love to run the football.
The college recruiters came calling.
You know, I didn't think I was going to be able to go to college. I mean, I'm just being real.
There's colleges from all over the nation sending recruiters in here, phone calls from everywhere.
Wow, that's the coach from Auburn? You know, how did he call my house?
It's a business, I mean, and their business is entertainment.
and they want the best, highly touted players they can get for their program.
McLendon wanted to stay close to home. He picked NC State, but he had trouble deciding on a major.
Then I didn't care because there was so much football. The football aspect started taking control of my academics in a way of, I want to play football, but what about your academics? And it's like, I want to go to the league, but you just keep getting hurt. You know, your body's sore. It's hard to really do.
McLendon says he mostly played hurt and did just enough academically to stay eligible to play.
With the injuries that he had his freshman year, I'm not real sure he ever really healed completely before the next season.
McLendon says he played hurt because he didn't want to let his fans, his teammates, or his coaches down.
You know what? I can play coach. You know, I'm fine. I can go.
But injuries continued to nag him. The fans' nickname for TA, Touchdown Anytime, became Turnover Anytime.
I hated that, you know. It was frustrating. You know, it's like, God, just when I feel like I'm healthy, I gotta go in the training room and work on my forearm because it's sore. I gotta work on my shoulder because it's feel like it's out of place again. Well, my hamstring, I pulled it again. I hate this.
McLendon says battling both injuries and the constant criticism of an assistant coach were too much to bear. He decided to leave NC State at the end of his junior season and take a shot at the NFL draft the following spring.
You look at a guy like Alex Smith in that shotgun.
You just want to hear your name called. Yeah, they talked about you, but you didn't hear your name called. And that's all you want at the end of the day. You want a team that wants you. And when you're not wanted, it's like, well, wow, what am I doing here? When it was over, I just kind of went outside and sat in my car. And I was just like, wow. I have no football, I have no college, I have no nothing. It's like, oh, what do I do now?
In September 2007, Albemarle police arrested McLendon for drug possession during a traffic stop.
Once he pulled me over, he called all the other police cops, and he was like, guess who I got pulled over?
A judge gave McLendon 2 years probation, but he failed a drug test, violating parole, and he got 5 months in prison.
And I'm like, wow, how did I get here? You know, I don't ever want to be here.
I wish that he would have got his degree.
So does McLendon.
I had a clouded head, you know, young, dumb, and you know, just all this stuff going around you, you know, what are kids supposed to do?
Today, McLendon is back home in Albemarle, helping his mom recover from drug addiction.
You know, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter at all.
With no degree and a felony conviction, McLendon is unable to find work.
You had everything and now you have nothing. Yeah.
Some say stories like McLendon's show how big-time college sports have lost touch with what colleges and universities are supposed to be about.
They chew these young people up and spit them out, and never to see them or never to contact them again.
And just how did big-time college sports get so big?
In a way, the college sports enterprise has gotten to be a tiger that the universities are holding on to the tail of, and they are holding on for dear life.
Yeah, I do not want to miss tip-off of the NC State game.
Big-time college sports are so big because of fans like Amy Strickland and her mom, Ruthie.
I hope nobody gets injured.
Yeah.
Amy graduated from NC State and now works there.
I love everything NC State. I have lifetime rights, football tickets. I'm at every football game. There's not an excuse to miss a football game.
And no excuse to miss the ACC men's basketball tournament. Amy and her mom make the drive every single year.
Win or lose, we're there.
You gotta stay with them.
ACC programs here.
I pray a little bit before the game starts. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Try to not get too excited.
Come on, Pat, let's go!
Stay a little calm in case there are small children around.
Oh, come on!
I can get a little feisty on game days.
She's terrible.
And watching games in public is sometimes a little hard because I have to control myself.
Way to go,
It's your devotion to your team. It gets in your blood and it never goes away.
It's the same devotion that drew nearly 30,000 people to NC State's spring football game a month later to watch a glorified scrimmage.
I'm the biggest Wolfpack fan. I love it. It's in my blood. I have been coming to NC State football games since I can remember, since I was a baby. So it's part of my family tradition.
Perhaps nowhere does tradition and devotion run deeper than with Duke's Cameron Crazies, especially at home against rival North Carolina.
I love it to be out here touching and stuff and to be able to support the team at the games and stuff.
Duke Carolina basketball is one of the most intense, storied, and visible rivalries in all of college sports.
Great players, great tradition, quality schools.
It's produced some of the truly special games in college basketball history.
Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be Dukies, and go Tar Heels.
Fans' love of the Duke-Carolina rivalry and college sports in general helped bring two 24-hour sports talk radio stations to the Raleigh-Durham area, a market that had none 20 years ago.
And in the state of North Carolina, the three steadiest topics of all are college basketball, college football, and the NFL.
Stand by gold. TV coverage of college football and basketball games has exploded too.
People are less likely to record a live sporting event that they care deeply about. They're more likely to watch it live.
CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the
leading advertisers to invest heavily in events like March Madness.
And I had Georgetown going to the finals.
They are targeting fans like Matt Corrigan and his entire family.
We're all big sports fans.
Every year, each member of the Corrigan family competes in a March Madness bracket competition.
It's really for pride.
And for money. This year, each Corrigan has kicked in $20.
There's taunting, trash talking during the seasons, during this tournament. Hey, Dad.
Hey, Matt.
There's even trash talking via Skype for family members living in other cities.
I think your bracket stinks.
Fans like the Corrigans in living rooms, offices, and sports bars help make March Madness one of the biggest televised sporting events in the country. Nearly 150 million people watch the tournament on broadcast cable and satellite TV. About 6 times the number who watched 30 years ago.
The most dramatic change is television, and that's brought college sports to a national level that we've never seen before, and therefore an interest level that we've never seen before.
Sponsored by State Farm.
That interest level translates into more than $1 billion in ad revenue for March Madness alone, rivaling the Super Bowl.
The men's college basketball tournament makes all the money, or 90% or so, for the NCAA.
There's plenty of television exposure during the regular season, too.
The average number of times a basketball team in one of the top conferences is on TV, 27 times a year. That's a lot.
College football gets lots of TV exposure, too.
Touchdown.
Television coverage of college football took off after the 1984 Supreme Court ruling that stripped the NCAA of its power to control the TV contracts of college football games. The ruling coincided with a boom in cable TV.
The coincidental timing of those two things have really changed college athletics, and I think we're still trying to figure out what's the future look like.
Swafford throws to Jolly, who legs it down the sideline for the Tar Heel touchdown.
ACC Commissioner John Swafford says when he played football at North Carolina around 1970, maybe 1 or 2 games were on TV.
Now practically every game is on television, and that generates more and more interest, more and more fans.
4 seconds to go.
TV now helps college football generate $1 billion a year in national ad revenue.
Incomplete. Wolfpack with the upset.
The study of sports is not traditional in anthropology.
Orrin Starn is a professor and chair of the Cultural Anthropology Department at Duke.
The reality right now is that Division I universities across the country are running this billion-dollar sports entertainment complex. And I don't think that that sounds very good to put up front in your mission statement.
But the mission statements of just about every major university never mention sports.
So it's a parallel shift.
That's something that intrigued Charles Clotfelter.
There's basically a lack of candor.
Who bears the tax burden?
Clotfelter is a professor of public policy, economics, and law at Duke, who wanted to know why.
It's an unacknowledged core function of these universities, and the universities are, frankly, not very candid about saying it.
Which prompted Clotfelter to research the topic and write a book called Big-time sports in American universities.
Let's look upon this as just another thing that universities do and ask the question, why are they doing it? And then ask the further question, is this a good thing?
Next, the good, the bad, and the ultimate goal of big-time college sports.
It's all about winning.
On August 31st, UNC Charlotte played its very first football game.
I think it'll be a way to connect a community that sometimes hasn't really embraced UNC Charlotte.
It doesn't come cheap. UNC Charlotte spent $45 million on a 15,000-seat stadium complex. It includes a field house with a state-of-the-art weight training facility. While private donations and seat license sales account for 20% of the cost, 80% is coming from a hike in student fees.
The students were a big part of that decision. I think they understood that there were going to be trade-offs all along the way, but they also wanted football as part of that experience.
UNCC has officially joined what many call an arms race in big-time college sports.
That means I want to do everything I can to beat you, and that means I got to do more than you do.
Meaning spend more money. A recent study shows that average annual spending by ACC schools is about $15,000 per student and about $103,000 per student athlete. Some may quibble over the exact amount of the spending disparity, but experts say it's there. They point to the extra expenses tied to sports, like tutors, trainers, travel, arenas, stadiums, and of course, coaches. Clotfelter's research showed that between 1985 and 2010, average salaries at public universities rose 32% for full professors, 90% for presidents, and 650% for football coaches.
These coaching salaries reflect market price. They're driven by the market. And yet at the same time, I think that they do signal that something is really wrong with our priorities in American universities right now.
But it takes good coaches to win, and it takes winning to make money, and recruit the talent needed to keep winning. And recruiting is easier if facilities are better.
My partner, Len Elmore.
Len Elmore, a basketball star at Maryland and in the NBA, serves as a CBS and ESPN analyst and is a member of the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics.
In order to recruit, you have to say that you've got competitive, if not better, facilities. And I think that arms race really is what costs an awful lot.
Like the $40 million expansion of NC State's Carter Finley Stadium in 2006 and the $70 million expansion of UNC's Kenan Stadium in 2011. Steve Logan says he couldn't compete with UNC's facilities when he was recruiting as ECU's head coach in the 90s.
It didn't matter how good of a salesman I was, I couldn't outsell my product relative to the University of North Carolina to a North Carolina kid.
Part of the facility investment also includes academic support centers where student athletes get tutoring. It's an investment to help keep athletes in big-time sports academically eligible to play.
We got to pour more money into these tutors to come sit with Billy Bob so that he can hopefully to God pass chemistry, so that he can hopefully to God catch a pass from me next fall.
But catching those passes can pay big dividends. An ESPN study shows that the University of North Carolina Athletic Department generated more than $66 million in revenue in 2008, mostly from ticket sales, broadcast rights, and booster donations. There's also money to be made from corporate sponsorships, selling merchandise, and sometimes jumping conferences. Money motivated ACC founding member Maryland to jump to the Big Ten.
By far, TV revenue is behind these realignment and conference jumping decisions more than any other factor.
Its football team is in its first season, and UNC Charlotte is already moving to a new conference. The chancellor says the move could mean 10 times the money.
It wasn't hard to make the decision to leave the Atlantic 10 and go as soon as we would be allowed to into Conference USA.
Despite all the revenue from big-time college sports, the ESPN study showed only half of the 120 athletic departments in the football bowl subdivision, or Division I, were making money. 21 were breaking even, and nearly 40 were losing money. A major reason is sports other than football and basketball.
So when we try to generate more revenue, that's not necessarily to spend it on the sports that generate the revenue or to put it in anybody's pocket, but it's to spread it over the other 700 student athletes that participate in sports that don't generate money.
Even UNC Charlotte doesn't see its football program operating in the black.
The television packages are getting larger and larger, so it might become a little less painful in some respects, but we don't expect it to make money, never did.
So why do universities invest tens of millions of dollars into athletic programs that lose money?
The conclusion I came up with is that the trustees want to have competitive teams. Period. End of story.
Next, how there's much more return on that investment than ticket sales and TV revenue.
It really serves as the platform, if you will, to talk about all the good things that are happening on your respective campus.
Sorry, cold hands.
Cassie Calvert and her friends are outside Cameron Indoor Stadium getting ready for Duke's big home game against North Carolina.
There you go. You're eat.
They are Cameron crazies.
This is one of the reasons I wanted to come to Duke, because not only is it really good academically, but like no other school of like Duke's caliber has a student section that's this like amazing. Thank you.
And that is one of the biggest benefits of a university having big-time sports programs. It draws students, often good ones, who might not otherwise be familiar with the institution.
There are a lot of students who would never heard of Duke and never gone to Duke had it not been for Duke basketball.
It's window dressing. You know, it's the storefront. And then people, once they like it, they walk in. And, you know, the thing is, they'll find amazing things when they walk in. You know, much more amazing than the storefront. The storefront, though, gives us a global presence.
Inside the store at Duke are world-class schools of medicine, law, environmental science, engineering, business, and public policy. It's all part of the Duke brand that basketball helps sell.
When I travel, the first thing they always say is, oh, you have a wonderful basketball team. They know about Coach K. They know about the national championships.
They know because of media coverage of the team's success. Just announcing it was starting a football program raised the profile of UNC Charlotte.
It has in many ways helped the public conceive of us as a major institution, and that has many dimensions to it over and above football.
A higher profile helps boost admissions. Steve Logan recalls his admissions director at East Carolina.
Anytime that we had good football seasons, his job became easier.
Big-time college sports also builds school spirit.
It really does change, elevate one's emotions toward one's own school. It's a good thing.
It strengthens bonds between people inside and outside of the university.
The concept of college sports was designed to build community
and strengthen a university's connection to its alumni.
I don't know that there's anything we do that builds loyalty among alumni to the same extent as athletics. And that pays off for the university in a lot of ways down the road.
One way is generating alumni donations, and not just to athletics.
There's all sorts of secondary benefits where maybe your athletic program is the reason that a person still feels connected to your university in ways that may show up by contributions to the library, by attending events that have nothing to do with sports.
College football may also have helped hasten the end of segregation in the South as teams began to integrate to stay competitive.
And so these people who had grown up in a segregated society began to get used to the fact that their teams, the teams they loved, had black faces as well as white faces.
Over the years, college sports helped reinforce the concept of racial unity through television images of black and white athletes playing and celebrating together. But perhaps the most important benefit of big-time college sports is it just makes people happy. People like Cassie and Matt.
If Indiana wins, I'm pretty much a shoo-in.
And Amy.
Woo! Sure, it's crazy, but so is our love for video games and playing gin rummy. And if it gives people happiness and it's not harmful, you know, what's wrong with that?
Next, what has gone wrong?
Where there are massive piles of money, there are inevitably problems. And college sports is no exception to that.
Just about everyone in America knows who this is. But do they know who this is? It's Coach K's boss, Duke University President Richard Broadhead. In researching his book, Clotfelter compared Google hits for the presidents of 58 major universities and their football coaches.
In 56 out of 58 of those, the president lost.
It has Clotfelter and many others questioning whether big-time college sports have become too big.
It's not the most important thing by far that's going on here.
Krzyzewski says those things are going on in places like the medical, law, and business schools.
All the different schools are doing more important things than we are. They're just not as visible.
And run it is out.
But some say that visibility is overshadowing universities' primary academic mission.
Sometimes the mission of leadership development gets lost, and it's about revenue development. And I think that's where the problem lies today in big-time sports.
Revenue development to keep up with the big-time sports arms race at a time when many university leaders are calling for austerity in academics.
And yet the checkbook seems to be open for sports. You never hear calls for cutting back the amount that's spent on football and basketball programs. They really seem to be the sacred cows in these times of austerity.
Duke wins it over North Carolina.
Sacred cows in a pasture separated from the rest of the university.
It's almost like there are two cultures that are on the same campus.
The late Jim Valvano once said, "We're not even really part of the school anymore anyway. I work for the NC State Athletics Association. That has nothing to do with the university. You think the chancellor's going to tell me what to do?"
As we saw in the Penn State scandal, there's often very little oversight by top university administration of what goes on in athletics.
Part of the reason is a culture of reverence for big-time college sports teams that sometimes shields them from scrutiny.
Everywhere there is big-time sports, there is reverence to the colors, the mascot, the team, the tradition.
Some say the status of big-time sports teams, the drive to win, and the money at stake puts too much pressure on coaches to bend the rules, especially when it comes to recruiting. Just this year, there have been allegations of coaches and boosters paying players at Oklahoma State and Auburn. The Auburn scandal included allegations of grades being changed to keep players eligible.
You worship at the altar of your program. You do what it takes to win the football game, to do it the best you can, to do it the right way. But don't tell me you've never broken a rule. Don't tell me that.
Logan held assistant coaching positions at Oklahoma State, Tulsa, Colorado, and Mississippi State before taking the head coaching job at East Carolina.
I've been in recruiting situations where it was told to me in no uncertain terms that just simply for a kid to come visit the school I was representing, it would probably be good if the mom and dad got a new washer dryer and maybe a new roof on the house. That was a starter. That was to get the visit.
Every time I used to sign a football player when I was a head coach, I think, man, I just tricked another one.
But Logan says coaches don't commit most of the recruiting improprieties. Instead, they're committed by overzealous boosters like Nevin Shapiro, who allegedly showered University of Miami football players with cash and other perks.
And that way everybody can be Pontius Pilate. You wash your hands and walk away. I didn't do it.
Coaches to players to agents.
Sports agents are a problem too. The NCAA imposed sanctions on the North Carolina football program and dismissed several players from the team for improper contact with sports agents. At least 2 players allegedly accepted cash from agents.
Austin was given between $10,000 and $13,000 worth of improper gifts.
Because of the money, sports agents do things they shouldn't do and interfere with our student athletes sometimes in ways they shouldn't, and that creates problems for everybody.
UNC's agent scandal helped uncover an academic scandal. UNC football and basketball players taking bogus courses in the African and Afro-American Studies Department.
And I personally find it hard to believe that no one in the athletics department, none of the academic advisors who work with student athletes knew exactly what was going on in the African American studies and other programs.
Does the athletic department have a responsibility for those academic advisors?
Absolutely.
Apparently there was a cozy relationship between advisors in the academic support program for student athletes and the chair of the African American Studies Department. But an investigation into the scandal by former Governor Jim Martin found no evidence of the athletic department deliberately steering athletes to courses it knew were bogus.
I don't think it's unusual that kids who have a lot on them are sometimes looking for courses that might be seen as easier than others. You know, we see that among non-athletes, and we saw it in these classes among non-athletes.
Another consequence of big-time college sports is sacrificing tradition in the pursuit of money. That's what's happening with Maryland's jump from the ACC to the Big Ten. It could mean $100 million more in revenue over the next 17 years.
I feel that Maryland leaving is is sad. This was a quick decision by new people to go from red to black. Now, what else did they do? Well, they changed the course of history for a conference, for a school. You know, they severed tradition.
Maryland was also criticized for making the decision in secret, without input from students, student athletes, faculty, alumni, or the public.
And the bottom line is that you can't make a decision of that magnitude in secrecy.
But a confidentiality agreement Maryland's president signed with the Big Ten allowed him to do just that.
Makes a duet running.
Another example of athletics trumping academics is television networks controlling game schedules and thus the schedules of student athletes.
You end up with Thursday night football games and basketball teams that are playing all over the country in the middle of the week. And so it creates hardships for student athletes. It creates difficulties on campuses.
It's a mega billion-dollar business.
Other students are affected as well when classes get canceled or students skip class because of games. There are also studies showing that class attendance and studying declines on game days.
The key, in my opinion, is maintaining the appropriate balance between the academic side of things and the athletic enterprise. And that's not easy. That's challenging. It's not a new challenge.
In fact, you can go all the way back to 1929. The Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching called for sweeping reforms. It painted major college sports as an enterprise that had become too commercial and was not taking care of the academic needs of its student athletes. Similar sentiments were expressed in several reports by the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics more than 60 years later.
It's laughingly similar. The thing that has changed the most is the size of the dollar value.
TA McClendon carried so much of the load all day for the Wolfpack.
Next, has that led to the exploitation of student athletes playing big-time college sports?
They're getting a raw deal.
TA McClendon didn't realize how hard it would be to balance academics with athletics at NC State.
I think I stayed in the training room on anybody on the team. I mean, I was the training room man, you know. I might as well mop the floors and swept and everything, you know, I was in there so much.
That left less time for schoolwork. One study shows that student athletes spend more than 40 hours a week on activities related to their sport.
They're working law firm hours, and they're expected to go to class.
Conference realignments are taxing student athletes even more.
Unfortunately, geography has not driven conference affiliation recently. It's been media markets and television sets.
We send volleyball teams, wrestling teams, baseball teams from Boston College to Miami, and now Syracuse.
It's going to increase the amount of time devoted to the sport and then decrease the amount of time that they can devote to academics.
The Knight Commission said big-time athletic departments seem to operate with little interest in scholastic matters beyond the narrow issue of individual eligibility. That means making sure student athletes do just well enough in school to stay eligible to play.
I think it's really quite common in big-time Division I sports for students to be accepted into universities because they're fabulous players, but who really just are not ready to do college-level work. In many cases, they're not even doing high school level work, but have more of a middle school level of reading and in math.
Which is one reason for the academic support centers and tutors for student athletes. It's also one reason athletes sometimes get steered toward easier classes.
That is routine business. It's routine business.
Logan remembers talking with his academic counselor trying to find a way to keep a player eligible.
Well, you're not going to put them in chemistry to bump that GPA up from a 1.8 to a 2.2. That's for sure.
The goal was to find a course that was an easy A.
Every student on campus knows those courses. So do those academic counselors.
But some say that's not helping student athletes graduate with a degree and a shot at a career.
Bullseye and a foul.
You should be able to pursue courses that are going to lead you towards a career goal. And if you're admitted to that school, you should be capable of doing the work. And that's the big problem. Are we admitting young people who aren't prepared to do college work?
A report by the College Sports Research Institute shows the graduation rate for men's basketball players in major NCAA conferences is 30% less than the rest of the male student body, and for football players, it's 17% less.
It's exploitive when a young person enters into university and ultimately does not come out with a degree.
Because at the end of the day, that paper going to be way more than that pigskin if you don't have that pigskin.
Only 1.7% of college football players make the pros, and 1.2% of men's basketball players.
There are over 400,000 NCAA student athletes. And just about all of us will be going pro in something other than sports.
But what about the ones who leave college without a degree?
You know, a lot of them go into professional homelessness, professional drug abuse, professional prostitution, professional fatherhood, professional incarceration. They just don't mention those disciplines.
Bullet pass in low to Leslie. One-hand jam over Simmons and a foul.
Some blame the NBA's one-and-done rule for discouraging players from earning a degree. The rule is you have to be 19 years old and 1 year removed from high school. So more and more of the top prospects are enrolling in just 1 year of college. Critics say that sends a message that a college degree just isn't important.
We should be building super highways towards college instead of building exit ramps that allow them to escape college.
Universities could close that one-and-done exit ramp by making freshmen ineligible to play basketball.
It's one of the baldest examples of universities not doing what they say they want to do.
And so is a university employee, like a basketball coach abusing his student players, as Mike Rice did at Rutgers. Rutgers fired Rice, then gave him a $475,000 settlement for the remainder of his contract.
Back to throw again.
Critics say athletes who play big-time college sports are mere corporate commodities. They're banned from free expression, like Tim Tebow's biblical eye black messages, while being forced to display corporate logos on their uniforms because of their university's contracts with apparel companies. And they live under the media magnifying glass that stifles their free speech and publicizes their indiscretions.
2-on-1 break. Dexter, a Hairston. Oh my goodness!
Corporations, conferences, coaches, and university are all making millions of dollars off the labor of student athletes.
But yet athletes receive nothing, with the exception of their scholarship.
And many of those athletes come from modest means. Logan admits violating NCAA rules by buying players coats when winter came and they didn't own their own.
My personal morals and ethics and my compromise of worshiping at the altar of the program, I got them a coat. Guaranteed doggone to you, I got them a coat. I was responsible for bringing them there.
Still, many argue that a college education and the future earning potential it provides is fair payment for the labor of student athletes.
I still believe that the overwhelming majority of college athletes get the better end of the deal. You're that star football player, you're that star men's basketball player. Clearly, you're giving your school much more financially than you're getting in return.
Part of the revenue stream for universities is the sale of jerseys and other logo merchandise, often bearing the number of star players.
Okay, I'm gonna play, but God, it'd be so good if I get some of it. Just give me just a small piece of the pie.
Next, should student athletes get a piece of that pie?
Could there be a fairer distribution? Sure there could.
Marshall trying to penetrate the Zeller layup. Got it! He got it and wins the game. Unbelievable.
Most people seem to favor some sort of reform in big-time college sports.
Our athletic programs are basically running a sports business in an educational setting, and those two things need to be balanced appropriately.
But few people believe that's possible.
I think big-time college sports are an out-of-control monster that no one really has the capacity to rein in at this point.
I simply believe that student athletes should have an opportunity to go out and endorse a product and do a chip and dip commercial and learn about building their own brand name recognition.
But some players making that kind of money, while others don't, could create another problem.
I will tell you that there would be a number of coaches who would be very much against that because of what they would perceive to be the divide between the haves and have-nots on their team.
Eliminating that divide by paying all the players on big-time college sports teams opens up another set of issues. What about the female athletes and their right to gender equity under Title IX?
There are few simple answers to cleaning up college sports in ways that would not create new financial, legal, or other complications. It's just not that simple.
The outcome of the Ed O'Bannon case may sort some of it out. He's a former UCLA basketball star who has sued the NCAA over the use of his likeness in video games.
I mean, the O'Bannon case is something that could potentially change college athletics in a very dramatic way.
Earlier this month, a panel led by Hunter Rawlings, president of the Association of American Universities, proposed 28 recommendations to better balance academics and athletics at UNC Chapel Hill. Among its recommendations are keeping coaches and others from influencing academic support programs for athletes, making admission standards for athletes consistent with those of other students, putting spending caps on sports teams, ending freshman eligibility for some athletes, reducing practice time demands, and mandatory education for coaches on the university's academic standards. Other proposals have been talked about nationally, including shrinking football rosters, shortening playing seasons, eliminating corporate logos on uniforms, limiting or eliminating athletic scholarships, and reducing coaches' salaries. Many of those ideas would be difficult decisions for university presidents to make, and they are not likely to happen unless all university presidents agree to them.
I think these presidents understand that alumni would want their head on a platter.
I say again, tongue-in-cheek, that university is a place where you can advocate lots of stuff, free love, you could communism, all that, and nobody's going to bat an eye. But if you say, I don't know about this big-time sports thing, people, sort of move away from you at the lunchroom, and so it is an unpopular idea.
There's a growing argument for a strong central body or commissioner to run college football and basketball, a person or group with no ties to the NCAA, its member institutions, or direct financial interest in big-time college sports.
There's not one voice that says this is the position of men's college basketball pertaining to this issue.
Some say there needs to be one each for basketball and football.
You're on Rutgers campus. What do we do?
Emmett Gill is a member of the Athletic Reform Group. It's an organization of faculty members from UNC and other local universities pushing for change. He says the first step in reform is university leaders being more honest and candid about the business their star student athletes are participating in.
If we would recognize that they are athlete students and adjust what we do accordingly, not abandon our principles, but just adjust them and be honest with ourselves, I think we'd be in a much better place.
The biggest obstacle to reform is that every organization involved in big-time college sports has a strong financial incentive to resist it.
Whatever the motivation is going to be, like everything else, I guess, it's going to have to be money.
The American public is really where the control of all this is, because it's the American public that has become very devoted to college athletics.
I was planning on winning. So
devoted like Matt Corrigan and his family.
We love our football and our basketball, and we're behind our team no matter what.
Like the Cameron Crazies.
We will be as loud and as obnoxious as possible, typical Cameron Crazy style.
Come on, Pat, let's go!
And like Amy Strickland.
I love NC State.